Hello and welcome to another episode of Words with Myself. There are many things that you cannot change in life, but one thing that you can change is your perspective. But the question is, how do we shape our perspective to better suit our life and to empower us rather than take energy from us? And I think a good start is understanding what perspective is, which is our ego's interpretation of the world around us. Every one of our decisions, every one of our experiences, every time something has impacted us, every time we've been told no or yes, that we were liked or disliked, or that we were wrong or that we were right. Over time, this has all jumbled together to form our identity, our sense of self, who we believe ourselves to be. And this identity vaguely transforms depending on our circumstances and the situation around us. We may be at a party and say, "Hi, I'm John, I'm so-and-so's husband." Or we might say, "I'm Max's dad," or something like this. We have a identity that we build, and that becomes what our role is in life. We say, "I am this, I am a musician, I am a writer, I am an actor, I am somebody who works in IT, I am any of the other attributes that I want to describe myself as being." And of course, we have a whole lot more personality or identity that we choose not to share with the world. We may believe that we may be judged for it, or that it's not appropriate for the situation or the circumstances. We may just believe that we're not enough or good enough, so we play a part and we act something that we're not. And this ego, this identity, is shaping all of our experiences because we are ranking it on a subset of previous experiences. And we're really not very good at doing this. We are very much lacking the capacity to do this accurately. We don't have the memory space for it. We don't know every event and all of the variables of that event that happened over time, and we forget things, and our memories of an event become really hazy and we're not quite so sure about them anymore. And instead of going on any specific data, we're actually just kind of lumping things in vague categories. We're saying, "Oh, this was a good experience, this was a not good experience, this was a time I got rejected, this was a time I didn't get rejected." And because we're lacking all of the context and all of the variables, how we perceive that situation is very one-sided, because when we went through that experience, we also had an identity and a perspective that was interpreting it through limited utensils. So the data quality is not great, and yet we put a huge emphasis on this data set. We put a lot of trust in our sense of self, in our sense of identity. We know what we've been through, we know our experience, when really we don't, because we don't have that recollection of events as they were in their accuracy. Instead, we have this vague sense of what went on and how it impacted us and how we felt at the time, when it truly is impossible for us to have all the variables and all the information needed in order to see that situation for what it truly is. Even in hindsight is, I feel like this was the right thing to do, but you don't know what the consequence of not doing the thing that you did even is. You're just expecting it to be better because you judge that situation as bad. You have an emotional attachment to it and you say, "Oh, well, if I just did this thing better in my life, then it would have worked out differently." And we're always kind of putting a positive inflection on that. And even then, we're mainly just talking about the big events that impacted us. There's also a lot of in-between events, days that weren't significant enough for us to take note or remember. So what we're left with is huge amounts of inaccurate data, and we don't have the tools necessary in order to accurately decipher that information either. We are making judgments from our perspective now, and we see that as evolved, but really it's just changed. It hasn't got better or worse. That is also a part of the illusion of perspective, is how we're judging it. We're saying, "Oh, it was better back then and it's worse now." And we may pull up some variables to kind of confirm that. I had more money, or I was healthier, or I just had more friends, or whatever metric you're using. But you are doing that. You're judging that through your own lens on whether that's better or worse. And there may be things where you say, well, of course, if my health has deteriorated, that's not going to be better. That's obviously going to be much worse. But Instead, maybe it opens your perspective to take your health seriously, maybe opens your eyes to how important life is and how to live it each day. Like they say that cancer patients, when they get their diagnosis, is when they finally started to truly live. Because before the diagnosis, they were constantly taking life for granted and they didn't appreciate their time. They didn't appreciate what they had, and now they do so much that they're able to live a much more fulfilling and beautiful experience. But we don't require such a dramatic change in order for us to change our perspective. We simply must understand that we are creating that perspective and we are choosing to attach to an identity that sees things in a certain light. And once you begin to detach from your identity, your sense of self, if you're saying things like, well, this has always happened to me, or things never go my way, you are choosing to identify with a subset of experiences that you have had, and you are using that to colour your future, to distort what may happen, when really you don't know what will happen. You have no idea what the future holds for you. You cannot know this. But each day we know we live the lie of trying to predict the outcome and control it. We know that. We know we're trying to remain safe. We are trying to remain alive. We are trying to do good things. Yet we ultimately know that these things are largely outside of our control, and that we could die at any time, and despite being able to do things that might extend our lifespan, it isn't guaranteed because a controllable factor might not be what kills us. Yet we feel like we have to play the game, and maybe we do. Maybe we have to have this sense of identity in order to be human and have a human experience, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But many of us feel trapped like a typecast actor. We feel like we keep getting put through the same roles and that we're not really changing, and our core identity is fixed and we're still all of our trauma and all of our experiences, and we can't get away from ourselves. But when we understand that we do not truly exist, and we only exist as a concept in our head. That is what our identity is what we have chosen to attach to in terms of memories, in terms of events, in terms of influence. All of these factors, whether physical, spiritual, social, all of these things come into play to help us feel like we are this person that we are. But if you wake up every day and you're unhappy, if you're depressed, if you don't like the person that you wake up to, or if you keep having the same experiences and living the same situations and things turning out the same way, and you feel like your life is on repeat and you are doomed to live as this character, and that character is sad and tired and depressed, you don't have to play that character anymore. You don't have to live your life as you are now. You don't have to make the same decisions. You don't have to have the same thoughts. You don't have to be who you think you are. You can be who you want to be. And you may say, well, I can't just pretend to be someone else. But you're pretending to be you. So you're already pretending. You're already acting. Alan Watts mentioned something about acting and the title of a book called How to Be a Genuine Fake. And it always makes me laugh because that is exactly what we're all doing. We're trying to be a genuine person, but the person doesn't exist. It's a paradox. The person that is trying to change is the person being changed. But if we realise that we were never that person in the first place, and that we are free to play a different game, to act a different act, to embody a different character, then we free ourselves to explore another new set of experiences as a different identity. But you have to let yourself truly die then, which means that you cannot do it through your lens. You cannot do it through doing what you do now and living the patterns that you live now. You have to have something radically different. You need a change of circumstances or a change of lifestyle or a change of attitude. It requires changing something tangible in order to deconstruct that idea of who we are. If we believe that we are weak and we go and do something atypical of what we believe we're able to achieve, then That's going to disrupt our sense of identity. We're going to be, well, we're no longer weak because we've done something that only strong people can do. But you have to go through the motions. You have to go through the experiences. You have to open yourself up to living life differently, to making different choices that the person that you believe you are wouldn't make. Otherwise, how can you truly change? If you keep doing the same thing, if you keep making the same choices with the same arguments and the same rationale and the same logic, you are going to live the same experience. And if you are unhappy with that, you are free to change. You are free to let go of your beliefs, your sense of identity. I'm sure there's lots of things in your mind that you think, oh, I would never do that. That is something I would never do. Or this is something I will always do. It may be that you say, you're a good person. And then I could say, well, why don't you do something bad? And they say, well, I'm not that kind of person. When a more accurate description is truly, I choose not to do that. This is not something I want to do. That's not an experience that I want to have. But we have to bear in mind that our sense of good and bad, our sense of right and wrong is attached to that personality. This isn't to say that we should all go out and do things that are bad, but instead to help you see that if you'd made different decisions, who you were would change drastically. And who you are is a choice, and you are making that choice. So if you are unhappy with who you are, if you are unhappy with the life that you are living or the experience that you are having, if you are depressed or anxious, you have the power to transform your perspective, your sense of identity. You have the power to shape the reality that you live and experience. And you may have very, very, very good reasons for being you, for having the identity that you have settled on. But if this identity is making you miserable, if it's making you depressed and unhappy, you must explore the idea that you are wrong, that your idea of who you are, what you like, what you don't like, what you agree with, what you don't agree with, what you think is right, what you think is wrong, what you think is great, what you think is terrible. You have to open yourself up to the idea that you are wrong about all of it. And maybe you're not. Maybe you're wrong about some of it. Maybe it's just a small adjustment that's needed to drastically change your perspective. But you can change. And none of us know ourselves as good as we think we do. None of us do. So bear that in mind. Thank you for listening.